Right now, though, Congressman Steve King is joining us on our Newsmaker line. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jan. I'm listening to this banter this morning and thinking, you only missed work because you were run over by a truck. That's a pretty good record.
Yes. They're still trying to repair that truck, though.
Well, it puts me back into what my father used to emphasize to me, that there are two things that he always hears, reasons or excuses. And there's a big difference between the two, and he always knew the difference. I think it probably is a reason to miss work when you get run over by a truck, not an excuse.
I still have the marks to prove it. We have lots of things to cover here this morning. What's going on in your life?
Well, I'm out here in Washington, and we're in the process of trying to do our last business so that we can go back and finish the preparations for the election. And
there's an election?
There is an election coming up, Jan. I know it's complete news to none of your listeners, none of them. And some of the topics, if I could take one off the top that I heard in the lead, the lean, finely textured beef issue.
Yes.
I'm glad that suit is filed. These are outstanding people, and they make great contributions to the community, and that's Eldon and Regina Roth. But additionally, I asked them, I said, will you send me some of that 100% product, not the blended that's 15% blended with the other, but the 100% product. And so I got some of that. It's in my freezer, and I mixed it in with a little hamburger and that. I put it into my burritos that I make, and my grandchildren eat it, and we like it, and I think it makes everything better. So I wanted to put my plug in there. This smear campaign that's been used against Beef Products Incorporated is one of the most reprehensible things that I've seen happen in the business world. It
has nothing to do with that you're so cheap. You mix in and you mix down your chili when your grandkids show up.
Well, it's cubed and in square cubes, about I suppose 3/8 by 3/8, something like that. And I haven't yet made it into straight hamburger, but I will, and I'll put it on the grill, and I'll report back to you. I know that it makes everything taste better. And so I wanted to bring that up. And then another piece of this, I'll say the third topic will be a bill that I'll be introducing later on today. One of them is the fair tax. And we're starting to hear some people that are having trouble sorting out truth from fiction on that. And you and I have talked about this sometime for a long time. And it is Mike Huckabee rode to the victory in the Iowa caucus 4 years ago. Significantly, part of that was on the strength of the fair tax. And Ellen Greenspan said, keep saying, Steve King, what you're saying does everything good that everybody's policy does that is good. It does them all. It does them all better. There's also information out there that it's misinformation, that if you buy a new combine, that you have to pay 23% tax on it under the fair tax. That's false.
That came up in your first debate, as I recall, with Christy Vilsack. Why is it false? In what way is it false?
It's false because there's no sales tax on business inputs. That's a business expense. And so I have said for years that if you buy a new combine, there is no sales tax on it under the fair tax. But if you buy a cap for your head, and we presume that farmers don't buy caps, they usually come with the seed corn. But if you buy a cap for your head, that's for personal use, you will pay sales tax on that. If you build a new home, you will pay sales tax on the materials and the labor. But if it's a used home, if you turn around and sell it the next day to somebody else, then there's no sales tax on that home whatsoever because it's once been taxed. So that's how that comes down. And by the way, we should remember that corporations are pretty efficient at collecting taxes from consumers, but they don't pay taxes. They just add it to the price of the retail goods that they sell. And consumers pay taxes. And so, under the fair tax, in the end, we have shifted the tax that's on productivity. And Ronald Reagan once said, what you tax, you get less of, but you subsidize, you get more of. Well, we tax all productivity in America under the taxing scheme that we have now. And under the fair tax, we eliminate all of the punishment for productivity and put it over on consumption. And then, so the bottom line becomes this, that you have your choice under the fair tax. It's this: you can decide when you pay taxes, and you can pay 23 cents out of every dollar you spend, or you can give up 33 cents out of every dollar you earn under the current system on average, and that's what the federal government takes out in payroll tax and in income tax withholding on average. So that's it, and I'll be talking about the fair tax substantially on the 22nd of September up at Iowa State University. We plan to debate up there, and Christy Vilsack, I don't know that she's willing to reconsider, but I was always committed to the 22nd of September. We have a room, and I'm offering the invitation. I'd be happy to sit down and let her make her case on the fair tax or any other tax policy on that day. So that's what I hope we can do. I get beat up on by the media, and when I object to that, and I don't mean the radio media, but when I object to that, I tell them, write your opinions as opinions, but write the facts. And when you misinform people willfully, the public needs to hold people accountable that do that. I want to bring this always back to the objective truth, and hopefully we can get that at that objective truth on the Saturday, the 22nd, up at Iowa State University, where I'll be talking about the fair tax and asking Christy Vilsack, come there and join me. And we'll sit there like Lincoln and Douglas, and two people, she and I, can get in a room together and have that conversation.
Is there any political mileage, even without the debate part of this? Is there any mileage right now out of tax reform? Because people are just so overwhelmed by everything that's going on. Do you think this is an issue that will resonate in this election cycle? Well,
here's what I think is that I don't think we're going to get this issue turned into law under whatever direction this election takes. I think it's a longer endeavor than that. And I have said for years that the only way we pass the fair tax is if we elect a president with a mandate, or if we get into a financial crisis that compels us to actually make that shift. And we got into the financial crisis, but we had the wrong president in place. And so I want people thinking about what are the fundamental structures of government that we need to put this country in the very best position to realize our future destiny. And lay down some parameters, repeal Obamacare, pass a balanced budget amendment, and we're going to have to sell this to the American people. I mean, it is that first you have to win the debate and then win the vote. I've never lost a debate on the fair tax, and I don't know anybody that's informed that has. And so I'm happy to have this and help lay down the parameters for something that's longer range in the future than we're likely to see in the next year.
Would you like to lose a debate on the fair tax?
No, I think it's impossible, Jan.
Well, my only reservation about the fair tax is the fact that we still have the 16th Amendment, which entitles the federal government to in essence, have a direct tax, an income tax. And my greatest fear is not my greatest fear, but it's a concern that if we go to the fair tax route, and if the revenue isn't forthcoming, we'll have an income tax and a fair tax. I don't want them to have the power to do both.
Well, I like your approach to this, and I like your attitude about it, and I think about it pretty much the same way, and that's why I am the author of the repeal of the 16th Amendment.
Let's go first with that.
But that sets up an impossible bar. It can't be leaped when you do that. And so what we do instead is we set up the difficult but possible rather than the impossible. And that is that in the fair tax legislation, it authorizes it for 5 years, and at the end of that 5 years, if the 16th Amendment is not repealed, then the fair tax legislation is sunsetted. That forces the situation on us, and it recognizes your position. But in any case, we already have federal sales tax imposed on us under Obamacare that runs parallel in conjunction with the income tax.
We have lots of folks who'd like in the conversation already. Congressman Steve King is joining us on our Newsmaker line. Obviously, what's going on in international stuff, Congressman King, is very important. I've yet to hear you have a chance to speak about it. So when we come back here in a moment, can we do that okay?
Sure, I'm happy to.
Congressman Steve King on our Newsmaker line. Join us right now, 284-1040 or 800-469-4295. Back in a sec. Congressman, we have lots of folks in on the conversation. This is Dan. Good morning, Dan.
Hey, Jan and Congressman. Hey, I got 3 quick points. Number one, and I know there's some what I call feeble attempts to explain it away, but based on the cost of goods, but retired people will have no income, and they'll be spending all their savings, and they'll be graced with paying 23% tax on money they've already paid income tax on. And I know you say products will be cheaper and all that BS. I don't believe that, and I think it's an unfair thing. And then the second thing is you're going to create an enormous black market. I mean, a Rolex watch, for instance, that's worth $7,500. You're going to suddenly make that a $9,000 watch, a hell of an incentive for a black market. And the third thing is you're going to drive all retirees right out of this country.
All right, that's
okay.
All
well,
right.
First of all, I would say, Dan, that to start out with BS isn't very conducive to an open discussion. So I don't expect you're going to accept what I tell you, but I'm speaking to a number of people also out here. A retailer, a business person, is not going to take a chance on waiving the tax because they're out of business if they do that. And so there's no benefit to them to even split the difference because in the end they're not going to be in business. There's plenty of black market out there now, and it's the fraud and corruption and the uncollectibles within the IRS today. And there is a risk of some black market, but there's a lot of black market out there that we tax as well, and that would be the people that are operating on cash, those that are being paid by cash, people that are operating in the illegal drugs and the pimps and the prostitutes. There's a lot out there that are not participating in the income tax side of this thing that are participating in commerce already in black market commerce or cash business. And so we pick up a lot of that. And the numbers that we show show that we're a lot better off to go that way than we are to put up with the uncollectible or uncollected income tax that we have today and the people that are operating outside of the income tax part of it. And if anybody believes in free enterprise, you have to believe that markets prices are set by competition. And to say that you don't believe that prices will go down when you remove the tax on the productivity is to say that prices are fixed by something other than competition. That's a whole other argument. But I believe they are fixed by competition, some in short period, some in long period. But we've set this structure up for the tax configuration in our prices. It is just a fact. And I don't know that there's any economic way to argue with that. And I've sat down with some of the brightest economists out there, including Art Laffer and Alan Greenspan, and they agree with me. So, I appreciate those comments. I know where they come from. On the senior citizen part of this, too, yes, the senior citizens have saved money, and they've done so, a lot of it with after-tax dollars. But we're also watching as money gets printed and QE3 ready to devalue our currency a little bit more. That's a tax on our senior citizens that's going on with the irresponsible spending that we have and propping up a temporary economy. It's a short sugar high. But the senior citizens do actually get a benefit. If the dollar value remains the same, and under my proposal, the dollar value is going to stay stronger than it would be otherwise, then they're going to see those goods that they would buy otherwise get cheaper. Not just not increase in price, but get cheaper. That does help our seniors, and I think it's a good deal for seniors. But thanks for raising those points. It helps warm me up for the debate coming up, I hope.
What about you just mentioned it yesterday, Bernanke decided he's going to issue, or not issue, but buy additional mortgage-backed securities, $40 billion a month, indefinitely. What do you think about that?
Well, I look back at, I think it was a mistake that Greenspan made, actually, and I just invoked his name in a favorable way. But the cycle of this has been, we had an economy under Bill Clinton. The best thing that was going under his economy was the dot-com bubble. That was, it wasn't a good thing in the end, but it created a false economy. When that bubble burst, and it was pierced by the lawsuit against Microsoft, I think it would have burst anyway. It created a hole in our economy that they attempted to prop up by a false housing market that was generated by unnaturally low interest rates. That's part of what preceded, and a lot of other things went wrong going into this economic downward spiral in 2008. This is a continuation of those kind of prop-ups for the economy. It can't last long, and I think we've got to let this market settle, and it needs to settle on real estate values and legitimate loans, and those that have to require a down payment and do measure your credit. It is, I think actually George Bush started the overbuild of what goes on in our real estate market. And in Iowa, we've been pretty responsible and pretty stable, and I give our people credit for that. But nationally, it's been a bit of a shell game here on our real estate mortgages, and this is a way to bridge it past the election, in my view. According to the Federal Bureau of Economic Analysis, our GDP for this year will be about $15 trillion.
our debt is going to be 16-some trillion dollars. So our debt is bigger than our entire productive sector. 103% of GDP.
And that's a number we've been looking at and talking about for some time about how this is dragging us in that direction. And at this point, we've reached this impasse with the White House and the Senate and not been able to slow this spending down adequately. And it's going to take an election to fix the problem. And
how will the election fix the problem?
Well, I talked to a group of senators last night, and they had a round table over there that I chatted with them for a while. They'll get some new blood there, I hope, joined with some of the good fiscal leaders. And I told them last night, you're going to have to lead out of the Senate. We need those strong, fiscally responsible ideas out of the Senate, because I think here it's going to be hard to get it done in the House. We need a majority in the Senate, a new majority in the Senate, and we need somebody in the White House that'll drive policy from the bully pulpit. And without that, I think this fiscal cliff that we've talked about is more like drifting toward the waterfalls. At a certain point, you can't paddle back from it, and you're going to know before you go over the edge.
This is Tom. You're talking with Congressman King.
Yes, sir. I disagree with you on the fair tax because I agree with Jan about the income tax, but, sir, until we eliminate the IRS, the states need to collect the income, or the taxes, I should say, and let the states deal with that and get rid of the IRS. That would help eliminate all these problems.
This does get the fair tax does get rid of the IRS. They are gone, and then the states do the collecting under the fair tax, and we pay them a small percentage for their collection. So for the first time, there's compensation for doing that. I think the number is 45 states already have the structure in place, including Iowa. So it is the simplest and cleanest and the most open tax that there is, and it's a revenue neutral proposal. So that's where I stand on it. The states do a very good job of it, and I think it gets so much more simple, and we save billions of dollars in the collection cost process as well.
There's lots to talk about. How much time did you set aside, Congressman?
Well, I'm pretty close to the end here. I know.
Okay, we haven't talked about what's going on in Egypt here at all. What is your thinking?
Well, Egypt and Yemen and Libya, all of that. First, our prayers need to be for the families of those who have been killed. I'm not able to get enough information on what happened, the sequence of it, what we had for security forces. I have sent out a message that said that we should never apologize for the utilization of free speech here in the United States, and I think that our government's position was that we did do that. I think we need to send a strong message out there, and I think we need to arm our embassies and protect our embassies. When we see the evacuation taking place, I'm wondering, what are the numbers of Marines that we have there? How close is it logistically? What's it take to drop in air support? I can't quite trust these countries. And if their job is to secure our embassies, and they don't, we need to have a position where a logistical position where we can put in reinforcements and protect our embassies. It is an attack on the United States, and I think it's an act of war against the United States.
It's interesting that, according to some of the news accounts I was reading this morning, Egypt was aware. In fact, the Egyptian government warned the U.S. Embassy that the mobs were on their way. Now, if that's the case, I was listening to what Rand Paul said yesterday. Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky said, if that's the case, Egypt itself had a responsibility to send tanks and other military support to protect our embassy. If they did not do so, is it time to re-examine the billions of dollars we send Egypt in aid every year?
Well, I agree with that. I guess I leaped over that part, but each one of those countries have a responsibility to defend our embassy, as we have a responsibility to defend theirs in this country. And I can't imagine mobs coming in here into Washington, D.C. and surrounding an embassy and scaling the walls and pulling down the flag. So I think I completely agree with that. All of the foreign aid that's going into these countries that allowed our embassies to be under siege in that fashion, I think needs to be immediately frozen. And then we examine this situation till we understand it and then make a decision. And I'm generally in favor of pulling back foreign aid. but I also want to make sure that we're evaluating the relations we have with the country and the tactical objectives that we have, and some of that's classified briefings. So, and we can't talk about those.
The last quick question. One of our listeners wants to know how you voted on the continuing resolution yesterday.
I voted yes on the continuing resolution, to throw this thing into a government shutdown quagmire in the middle of all that's going on here. The timing of what was going on was not conducive to that, and I'm looking for a chance to tighten this budget down tighter than we were willing to do yesterday. There was no Obamacare funding in there, by the way, so that was a deciding factor.
Congressman Steve King, thank you for joining us this morning, sir.
Thank you very much, Dan.
You bet. Bye-bye. Right after our farm markets will continue, we'll have some open line time at 1040 WHO.